Okay, welcome to the first Python test workshop. We're going to go through, we're going to set up Python. We're going to install Visual Studio Code. We're going to get introduced to the Python REPL, the interactive Python command line. And we're going to learn the basics of Python today, or at least we're going to try to. I'm Aaron, your host. Let's just go ahead and get started. So, um, Rasmin or Rajmin, have you used Python before, or do you have it installed on your computer?
No, I'm just using first time this one.
Okay, good. We'll try and go through first time. It's the first time for everyone. So are you on Windows or Mac?
I'm on window.
Okay, on Windows. I've got a Windows VM, but I'm on a Mac. We'll see how it works out. So the first thing we need to do to get started is to install Python. What I'd like you to do now is just go to python.org and download Python. And I will walk through the steps myself. Let me see. Okay. So I'm at python.org, right? You just want to go to downloads and download. Now it's going to try to download for Mac OS for me, but you can go to Windows and download for Windows. And it's funny, I'm on a Windows virtual, oh, wait, over here, I'm on a Windows virtual machine. And so on python.org, if I go to downloads, it'll download for Windows. So I click on that, and it's going to want to save to my file system in my downloads folder. Go ahead and just click save. I'm going to click cancel instead because it's already downloaded. And then let me know when you've got it downloaded. And you should have, if you're on Windows with an Intel or AMD processor, it should be Python 3.12.3 AMD 64. If you're on an ARM processor, like my computer, it's a Mac M1, but Windows is running in a virtual machine, you'll want ARM 64. If you choose ARM 64 and you're on an Intel machine, it probably won't work. I'm just going to show on the screen what it looks like. So I'm going to click on the Python installer here. I think I've already got it installed, but it'll come up with install Python. It'll say ARM or AMD or x86 here. Now, what you want to, you can choose to install it with admin privileges on Windows, but you don't have to. So I won't do that. But you do want to add python.exe to the path. That'll make it so that you can execute Python programs without putting the full path to the file name in. And then go ahead and click install now. And it'll run through. It's setting up the installer. Actually, I wanted to show one more thing. I'm going to cancel this install. I recommend you do a custom installation on here and that you install it in C:\Python. Instead, it's going to install it in some weird directory under your path, like app data, Windows, or whatever. So I'm going to click this again. Click add Python exe to path, custom installation. You want to go ahead and install documentation, pip, tcltk, Python test suite, PyLauncher. Technically, we're not going to use these, but we can do that. And for all users, we'll want admin privileges. And then we click next and customize install location. This is where I would do Python. And I would just put C:\Python to make it easy. Now, we'll try this again and install. All right, setup was successful. Now I can disable path limit length. Now in Windows, right, you have a 256 character, or 260, it looks like, character length for max path. We can disable that if we want. I think it's going to need admin details. But in most cases, it won't be a problem. But if you've installed it under that deeply nested path, right, which is something like, I'll bring up a command window in C:/user/Aaron Evans. Actually, I can type where Python in my command line. And here's the path where it's default installed. This is the Windows installation of Python. You do not want to use this Windows default installed version of Python, because in some cases, more advanced cases, it's not going to be able to handle things. You can see I also have Python installed a different way using pyenv, which stands for Python environment, which will allow you to install multiple versions. We'll talk about that in a minute, but mostly using pyenv is a good practice, but we're going to bypass it for now because you're beginners and I don't want to give you a complicated interface. So going back over to, if I go to C:\Python, and you can see I have it in this directory, and on C:\Python, I have python.exe and also python w. Those are roughly the same thing, but I can type python-v or python.exe-v. Either one will work. And if I do that, it should tell me that I have Python 3.12.3 installed. If you have any version of Python 3.8, 3.9, 3.10, or 3.11, that's going to be fine. It doesn't have to be the exact same version. For instance, like I do which Python, and it shows I have this installed here. So if I do python-v here, well, actually, if I go back to my home directory, all right. Now if I type Python, because I'm not in that directory, my default Python version is going to be. It says I have no default Python. So you can install pyenv, and I'll show that again. Where is my screen here? Right. The other option is to install pyenv for multiple versions. On Windows, you want to search for pyenv-win. If you're on Mac or Linux, it's just pyenv, and there's a command line script for installing that if you want to choose to do that. So you can see you can just grab this, invoke web request. All that's going to do is it's going to download this file from raw GitHub user content, and it's a PowerShell script. And so I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back over to here. I need to do this in PowerShell. I paste that invoke web request command, and it shows that it's already installed because I installed it. Let's see, python-v. It says no global or local Python version. So I want to do pyenv install, and I want to list the versions that are available. And it's going to come through with a big long list. And so you can see here, the latest version that's actually available through pyenv is 3.12.2, which is slightly older. So I'm going to just say pyenv install, and I'm not even sure if I can do 3.12, if it will get it. No, it needs me to put the full version number. So 3.12.2, and I don't know if that worked or not. But if I do pyenv global, I think I probably installed it before. I uninstalled it and reinstalled it several times. I don't know if got it. So now if I type python-v, there we go, 3.12.2. And if I type where Python, I forgot on Windows, which is not the command you want to use, it's where. And I need to do .exe? Nope. But anyway, I also have the which command because I have git bash tools installed. So which Python, it shows it's under pyenv. And so if I put that full path, and you can see this directory structure with the forward slashes, that's because it's a Unix-like or Linux-like environment that's set up on this machine. That's what the which command does. So ignore that. If you have Python installed, you should just be able to, here, let me type CLS. You should be able to type python-v. And after we've installed Python, whether we've downloaded and run that Python installer, or we've used pyenv to install it in the command line at PowerShell, or on Mac or Linux, you can use brew install pyenv, and that's an easier way to do it. But you can also use the regular installer. And if you're on Linux or Mac, you may have a version of Python that is available. Remember, you want Python 3.8 or above. If you have an older version in your path, you might also have Python 3. So I'll just go here into my Mac here, and I've got an interactive Python. But starting in a new tel, right? If I have Python-V, you can see I've got Python 3.12. Now, there's probably, if you have Python and it's Python 2 dot something, if you try the command Python 3, it may work like that as well. So if you do Python, I might have Python 2-V. Nope, I don't. But I do have Python 3-V, and that'll point to my latest version on a Mac or Linux machine. So that's something else to be aware of when you install. All right. So interactive Python, right? We've done Python-V. We see our Python version, so we're good to go. Next, we want to use the REPL. That's the read eval for evaluation print loop. The idea is it's interactive. You type a single command and it comes back with a single response. You can also type functions and loops and whatnot, but it's a little bit trickier. So let's go ahead and just type Python without the -v at your command line. And you've probably seen me do that already. I'll go back into Windows to do this just to make it more difficult for myself. All right. So here I am in PowerShell, and if I type Python all by itself, it should come up and it says Python 3.12.2 instead of 3.12.3. That's that ipython version, and it has some information about the version, and it comes up with these three little arrows. These three little arrows are the command prompt in Python. Let's write our first Python program, right? So we just want to type print, quote, hello Python, right? We always do like a hello world program when we're learning any programming language. So if you type print, and then you have parentheses, and then quote, and then whatever you want to write. I'm writing hello Python. And then you have a starting quote, just like in any book you've read, and a close quote. This is contained in what's called a string. A string is just a block of text that Python knows how to read. So this is one string. I could have two strings and combine them together, or multiple strings. But this is the string hello Python. The quotes are the indicator that this is a string. It's not part of the string. The parentheses here are a little bit tricky too, but this shows that print is a function. We're calling a programming function called print. The name of the function is print. And the parentheses indicate the argument. So we're passing as an argument or an option or a parameter to the print function the string hello Python. And there's not a lot of surprise here. When I hit enter, it says hello Python. I could change this to say hello Aaron, and it will repeat exactly what I did before, except replacing Python with Aaron. Now I can also, I mentioned I can have multiple strings. I can do hello plus Aaron, and the plus will combine these two strings and make them one. Now you can see here, it didn't include a space between hello and Aaron because, well, I didn't include the space here. So I can go back and do that again. By the way, when I am doing this and I print it and it just comes up again, if you're not familiar with using the command line, I'm hitting the up arrow on my keypad and I can cycle back through previous commands. That's good to know so you don't have to retype something over and over again. All right, so we've been able to run interactive Python commands and print things. Now, I want to introduce you to your first package. We've used the Python REPL, the interactive Python loop. There's a better REPL or a better Python. It's called ipython, I think probably for interactive Python. And so we're going to install that. Pip is the Python installer program. I think that's what it stands for. Anyway, pip is the way you can install different libraries and utilities to be used by Python. So I'm going to type pip install Python or pip install ipython. I'm going to exit out of here. And you hit exit with parentheses. You call the exit function. Or you can also, if you're in Python and you can't get out, right? If I type quit, if I type exit, it tells me to use the functions. And I don't remember how to do that. I can also hit Control D. Oops, maybe not. Maybe not on Windows. I think probably my command and control keys are overridden because I'm on a Mac with a Windows VM, and so my keyboard doesn't know. Anyway, so I exit out of my Python REPL, and the next thing I want to do, I'm going to hit CLS to clear my screen. I'm going to type pip install. If I can type install correctly, I'm going to type install ipython. And I don't remember if I have it installed. I should have installed it, but it shows it's downloading a bunch of things. And I recommend using ipython. There are a lot of things that are nicer about using ipython than using the traditional Python interactive terminal. So once this is done, right, I'm back at my Windows command prompt. I'm going to type CLS again to clear my screen. I'm going to type ipython instead of just Python up here. And it comes up the same. It says Python 3.12.2, and it says an enhanced interactive Python. The first thing you might notice is that it has this green in one. This is line one instead of the dot dot or the arrow, or greater than times 3, right? So to compare that, I can type Python in this terminal, right? I have angle, and I have in one. So let's go ahead and type our print, and you can see it already wants to help me out, right? If I go here, I type PRIN, it tells me what to print. And so I can type hello, Aaron. And the next thing you'll notice is it has these nice colors. So I can see my function is green, my string is yellow, and it also highlights, right, when I have the parentheses, it's giving me a hint. It wants another parentheses here. That's what gray means. And when it's there, it highlights. That's the start and end of my parentheses. That comes in really handy when we're typing multi-line stuff that you'll see in a little bit. So, hello, Aaron, in ipython versus hello, Aaron, in the Python. It's just a little bit nicer with the syntax highlighting and stuff. And I can also, oops, it just wants to keep bringing up my window. You can see it also gives me these line numbers, and I can go back in ipython and I can reference previous lines, right? So I can do history on line 1, and it will show me what I had on line 1. That's a more advanced feature of using ipython. The nicest thing about it is the syntax highlighting and the easier editing that it gives you. Well, and the hints that it gives you for typing as well. All right. Let's see what we've got next on the docket. And I am going to, rather than go back and forth, I'm going to juggle some screens here. I'm going to put yeah, I'm going to put this, let's see, we got to get past our beginning here. We've installed, we've used our interactive Python. We've also installed ipython. Let me know if you got ipython installed or if you ran into any issues with it.
I'm not getting ipython is working.
Okay. What happened?
I just type ipython and it's giving error, some kind of.
Okay. Did you, here, let me exit out of this again. And yeah, I'm going to do CLS. Let's reference this again. So I'm going to go to ipython. I'm just going to search for it. Installation. So did you do pip install ipython?
No, I didn't do that one.
Okay. So that's the next thing to do is in your command line window, right? Do pip install ipython. And it should probably say now for me, yep, it says requirement already satisfied. Whereas previously it said downloading all these different dependencies for it. And that's the great thing about pip is pip can read a setup file and know how to install all of the different dependencies and libraries needed for what you want to use. And you can see these ones, decorator, Jedi, matplot, prompt, pigments, blah, 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 right? Colorama, that's probably what's giving us our color highlighting in IPython. And once you get that it installed, it should complete, and then you could try IPython. We'll give you a minute to see if that works. Is it downloading?
No, it's again, it's gave me error. Could not find a version that satisfies the requirement Python from version.
Okay. What if you type Python -v? What does that do? Oops, not in here. But does that give you Python 3.12 something?
Yes, Python 3.12.3.
Okay, great. If you type pip-v, does that show anything? And in your case, if you installed it in C::Python, so right, if I do C::Python/pip
Yeah, it's
-v.
showing this on pip 24 from.
Okay, so it looks like this.
Yeah, that one is showing.
Okay. So you do pip install ipython and it says can't find a version of ipython.
Yeah, it's installing now.
Oh, great.
Okay.
That's good news. If you couldn't get it, I would just gear what we're doing without. And in fact, using IPython is great for ad hoc programming and great for simple tutorials like what we're doing. But normally you wouldn't use it as you're developing larger programs. You would be using a code editor like Visual Studio Code. All right, so you go IPython and it says 3.12.3 instead of 3.12.2, and it has that in one. Let's go ahead and move on. We can still work from the regular Python command line. When you type Python
Yeah,
in the
that
command
one is
line,
working.
it comes up with the three angles, like so.
Yeah, that one is working.
Okay, we'll base it works about the same. This has syntax highlighting, right, multiple colors, and it's easier to edit and do multiple lines, but it'll work the same. And we're actually going to switch to using our code editor in a little bit today. Anyway, so, okay, so now I can switch windows easier. Okay, so we've installed IPython, or it's not working for you, unfortunately. We've done our hello Python, right? We know that it works. Did you get hello, your name?
Yes, that one is
Great.
working.
Next thing is we want to talk about variables. A variable is essentially a name for a value that you create in Python. So, or any programming language, right? So here's what it looks like. I just want to say name equals Aaron, or name equals Rashmin, or whatever your name is. So I'm just going to do name equals Aaron, just like this. And now, once I have my name stored as a variable, I can just type name by itself and press enter, and Python will actually show me the string. That is the value. If I change the name to Rashmin and I type name again here, it has changed to this value. Note the difference here. I'm using the double quote character and it prints out using the single quote character. It actually, Python will recognize either one and treat it virtually the same. So if I type Robert in here and name equals Robert, So just know that you have the option to use the double quote character or the single quote character or the apostrophe, as you probably normally use it when typing. Okay, now what can we do with that? Well, now we can print hello, and remember how we can add two things together? I'm going to do hello, comma, space, and I can do hello, name. We do that, and it says hello, Robert. And I do name equals Aaron, change the variable name. So that's another nice thing about ipython is I could do CLS and it would clear my screen. But since I can't do that, we'll work with what you've got. I'll do print hello name plus name, and it says hello Aaron, and that's a variable. So the variable is called name. The name of the variable is name, and the value stored in that variable is Aaron or Rashmin or Robert or whatever it is. And I can store that as anytime I want and change it anytime I want. That's the very basics of variables. Now, there are, okay, I'm going to switch back to ipython. There are several types of variables, right? I can do name equals Aaron, and I can do age equals 42, and I can do awesome equals true. And now I can reference all of these values, right? I can print hi, comma, plus name. And I can print, let me introduce the next thing we can do. Well, I'll print, you are, actually, let's do this. Let's do name is, oops, I forgot my plus here. Name is age, years old. So I'm putting these strings together, and I've got a problem. So I have two different types of variables. Name is a string because it has these quotes, it recognizes this. Age is not a string. It says can only concatenate. Now concatenate means to join together. String, str, not int to string. So it's saying I have two different types of variables. Now there's one thing I can do to solve this is I can go up and I can say age equals 42. I'll make 42 a string. Now, when I'm going to clear my screen. Print name is age years old. It says Aaron is 42 years old. I'm going to change age back to a number. We're going to get our error. Now it says you can only concatenate string, str, not int to string. Well, there is a function that you can use to fix this and keep my age a number. So for instance, I can do age equals age plus 1. Now my age, if I just type age, is 43. If I do it again, now my age is 44. I can do plus 2 and type my age. I'm aging fast, right? And I go back to my print statement. Oh, I forgot. I need to change this to a string so that I can concatenate or join these strings together. So the function str will take any value and convert it to a string. In this case, it takes an int or an integer, a whole number, and now it'll work. So Aaron is 46 years old. I'm getting older by the minute, and I can type age plus plus. Oops. Actually, I can't do that in Python. I can do that in other languages. I can do age plus equals 1. And then if I print my age, I'm 47. I can do age plus equals 2. And now I'm 49. So let's take a step back and talk about adding numbers, right? So if I have numbers in Python, I can just add numbers together. I can do 1 plus 1 equals 2. I can do 2 plus 2 equals 4. Notice that the space is optional when I'm doing this. I can do 3 times 9 and get 27. I can do 69 divided by 3 and I get 23.0. Now notice this interesting value here, that it has a decimal point and a 0. That's a floating point number. And when I say floating point, I mean decimal point. In low-level programming languages like C, integers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are stored as a series of bytes like this. So this is an integer, right? And I'm just going to call it decimal. And it actually stores it and it keeps track of where the decimal place is. So it could be here, or it could be here, or it could be here, or it could be here with the implicit 0. So this is a decimal number, and the way it's stored is the decimal is floating to a different point. That's why they call it a float. So I'm going to actually call this float. And I'm going to just put my decimal in some random spot.
But I
It
think
does look like float is a reserved name, by the way, Senthil.
Yeah, that's why it's green, right? I thought it is.
Yeah, I don't know if it's reserved because it's a function. Just like I can cast to a string, I can cast to a float. I'll do that. Did I overwrite the float? Or I think it's just confused by the syntax highlighting. So it actually prints my number with a decimal place. And if I print integer, that's the reason I typed out integer instead of int. And then there's my string, and I can print string. Now, if you have a variable, you can check what type the variable is, which is useful. All right. So I'm going to CLS. So if I have name, I can do type of name. So type is a function, and it tells me the type is a string or an str. I do type of age, it tells me it's an int. Let's think of a real variable that has decimal. Oh, I know, kids. I have 2.5 kids. Just kidding. But you know the statistics. You get married, you have 2.5 kids or whatever. I actually have 4 kids. Type of kids is float. Now, you might remember I created another variable. I created a variable called awesome. And that's bool or boolean. If you remember, if I type Aaron is, I need to cast it to a string. Awesome. Well, it says Aaron is true because awesome, if we type this variable, awesome equals true. If I change awesome to false, let's make this is Aaron awesome? If you ask my kids, it will say false. I guess probably Aaron is awesome. Aaron is awesome, false. If you ask my kids. If you ask my wife, she'll say awesome is just true. We'll change that back. So Aaron is awesome, true, by changing the variable awesome. One thing to note here is when you assign a value to a variable, I probably never mentioned this, you use an equals sign. But you probably noticed that just from watching, even if you didn't know it before. All right, next thing we want to do, we've got Aaron name, age 42. All right. Inputs. We want to be able to interact with the user, right? Computer programs that can only print what you type or add or subtract or do math on what you type are kind of boring programs. So we want to interact with the user, and the command to interact with the console is input. So well, that's jumping ahead. Let's go ahead and try that. So I'm going to actually exit out of this. And the reason I want to do that is I want to start with ipython. By the way, if you're using, if you don't have ipython installed, you can just, I'm going to exit out of this too. Type ipython. I'm going to type CLS. Type Python, not ipython. And I forgot what I was going to do. Oh, well, I was just testing it out. Now name is not set. So I'm starting over with some fresh, with a fresh interface, right? So name is not set here. You can see when I type it, it still remembers from my history that I've typed this command before, and it's offering to help me complete the command, which is kind of nice with ipython, but can be confusing when you're working with different programs, and it may auto-complete something you didn't intend it to. All right, so now what we want to do, I'll go jump back to the plain Python interactive shell. I want to do name equals input. What is your name? Now this will print what is your name, and I'm going to add a space here at the end just for prettiness. And if we enter this, it asks you the question, what is your name? I can type my name here, and now I can print my name. My name is Aaron. Likewise, and we got any Monty Python and the Holy Grail fans here? I can type input, what is your quest? Sounds like maybe not. Well, in the movie Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the programming language Python, while its mascot is a snake, a Python snake, it was actually originally named because the creator of Python loved Monty Python. Monty Python's Flying Circus was a TV show. Monty Python and the Holy Grail is a ridiculous, fantastic movie. So what is my quest? To find the Holy Grail. All right, and I can print my quest. To find the Holy Grail. So input is the function. It takes as its first optional argument, right? I could do age equals input without any argument. And it doesn't prompt me anything, but I can still type 42 and print my age. Note here, as long as I don't have a string with it, print knows how to convert an integer or how to print out an integer. But once I combine it with a string, oh, actually, input returns a string. So let's do this again. Age equals input. How old are you? And I'll type 42. Now if I do type of age, it says it's of class string. So I want age to equal an integer. So I use the function int to cast the string to an integer, which knows how to translate a string of text into a number. And I do type of age now. And it says class int. Notice if we do the same thing here, age equals input. How old are you? This is in ipython. And I can type 42. If I do type of age, it just says string instead of class string. So that's something just a little bit different between ipython and Python. And if I do age equals int age and type of age, it just says int instead of class int. This is in ipython versus the regular Python shell. It amounts to the same thing. It's just removing this extra output from the console. All right, so we've got our name, we've got our age, we've got our quest. Anyone know what we need to find out next? We need to find out what my favorite color is. Add that space in there just for formatting. And I'm going to type blue. My favorite color is orange, by the way, for real. But and I can print favorite color. And it says blue. Now, let's jump on to our next topic, right? We've got input. Input returns a string, but we can cast it to an integer. We've talked about types, right? Type of name, type of age. Oops, I think that should have been type of awesome or something like that. What's the next thing? Conditionals. A conditional is a way to make your program branch or do one thing if some condition is true, or do something else if something else is true. So let's go ahead and try that in our interactive shell, right? Hopping over here so I can type CLS. All right, so I can say if name. Now notice this, I'm using two equal signs, equals, equals. This is measuring equivalence. So in algebra or math, right, this is a normal equals. A single equals assigns the value in Python, and in many other languages, two equals compares it. So if name equals Aaron, what do I want to do? Now, this might be the first thing people learn about Python as a programming language. In Python, spaces are important. You need to indent your text in a consistent way, either with spaces or with tabs in Python. But most programming languages treat spaces as whatever. It doesn't matter how you format your code. In Python, you have to indent every time there is a conditional, like an if statement, a loop, like a for statement, a function. We'll get into functions, hopefully. We might not get into functions actually today because time's running low. Or a class, you need to indent in Python. So we have an if statement. This is a block of code, and multiple lines can happen after this. Print, you're awesome. And I can do another line. I can also print, but your kids don't think so. So now I have multiple lines of code in the interactive REPL. Now in ipython, I can go back and edit this. In the original Python REPL, can't do that so much. Right, so if name equals Aaron, I have to do my own indentation. Let's see what happens if I don't print, but your kids don't think so. Now notice here, I have the apostrophe here, which is a good reason to use double quotes on the outside. If I have a string with single quotes on the outside and I have an apostrophe here, well, it's going to think that like if I were to type it like so. But your kids don't, it would think this is the end of the string right here. And I'll show you in ipython how that works in a minute. But I run that and it says invalid syntax. Why does it have invalid syntax? Now notice here, I can hit the up arrow and go back and find my previous lines. Oh, the command, but you're awesome isn't there, or but your kids don't think so. All right, now I'm at the end here. I'm gonna hit enter one more time to get a blank line. And now it executes these three lines of code together. Same thing over here in ipython. But oh, we've got a problem. Name is not defined. I'm gonna go ahead and fix this. But you can see I've got multiple lines together. If my indentation is off, I can go back and fix it. Another reason to love ipython. Likewise, if I do this, right, I put single quotes here, ipython will detect, hey, wait a minute, I have one string here. I have some empty text that's not a part of a string here, and I'm going to get an error. So I go to the end here, unterminated string literal. I can go back to this other one. Now, if I can also conditionally check, this means not equals. So exclamation point equal sign means not equals. Oops. So if name is not equal Aaron, print you're awesome, but your kids don't think so. So it didn't print anything. What I can also do is I can add else as a condition, and I can print but your kids like you anyway. And so if we do that, you're not awesome, but your kids like you anyway. That's if your name is Aaron. Now let's change the name to Robert. I don't know if you have kids, Robert. Do you?
I have 2 kids, and I am awesome.
Okay. So if your name is not Aaron, you're awesome, but your kids don't think so. Well, maybe they do think so. But anyway, so this is demonstrating a conditional statement. I have an if statement. If this evaluates to true, so if my name is not equals Aaron, or if the program's name is not Aaron, it's Robert in this case, it executes this piece of code. Otherwise, it goes ahead and it executes this piece of code. So in this case, because name is Robert, it prints this section, but not this section. We change it again to name equals Aaron. And we run this code again. And it says, well, the name is Aaron. So the logic is name not equals Aaron. Okay, well, that's not true, right? Name is equal to Aaron. So this section of code does not get executed, but this section of code does. And so it says, you're not awesome, but your kids like you anyway. All right, we are about out of time for today. We didn't get as far as I wanted, but probably got as far as I really expected. Let's see what else we need to cover. So we need to cover operators. Now we talked about equals and not equals. There are many other operators. For instance, in math, you can do greater than or less than, greater than or equal to. There are also textual operators, like we'll do one more example, right? So I'm gonna change this function. I can say if not name equals Aaron. So this is reversing it. This does the exact same thing as the exclamation equals, but it's a little easier to read. Now in this case, it should say, because my name is Aaron, right? Name is Aaron here, the last time we said it. It's going to say, okay, name equals Aaron, but don't do it at this. So it should print out you're awesome. Wait a minute. Oh, that's right. I changed it both ways. So if you want to go for a double negative, if name is not equal, if not name is not Aaron. That's a good way to end on something a little bit dizzying. Okay, so next week we'll talk about more about operators and conditionals. We'll cover loops, being able to do things more than once. So cycling through multiple commands interactively. And we will discuss functions, and we may get to classes, modules, and packages. And then after that, we'll get into some test automation things. We'll introduce PyTest, which is the testing framework for Python. We will explore Selenium for web browser automation. We'll also compare Selenium with Playwright, which is another newer tool for test automation. We'll look at mobile test automation using a tool called Appium. Appium is based on Selenium. And we will explore API testing using a library called requests. And then we'll look at some other things that are not directly related to coding in Python, but using continuous integration to run tests. So I hope you guys got a little bit of value about this from this, and I hope we'll be a little more polished and ready to go next week. And for those who are watching on the replay, give me your feedback, but try not to hassle me too much. All right, thanks. Any questions before we go?
Anything for the next class? Do we need to prepare, or any homework we need to do, or any exercises for today's class? What we do?
Not from the first one. You just want to make sure that you have Python installed, that you can use the interactive Python. If you can do pip install ipython.
Yeah, I have it actually. It is
Okay, great. IPython is useful. And then we didn't get to it today, but next week we'll install Visual Studio Code so we can type programs and save the files and edit them in a much easier way. So go ahead and install Visual Studio Code if you don't have it. If you can't install Visual Studio Code, you can use any text editor, even Notepad, for editing Python files. That'll be the next thing we do at the start of class next week. Is we'll switch from using IPython all the time to editing files in Visual Studio Code or whatever text editor you prefer. But for this first class, it was really just a gentle introduction. We spent some time troubleshooting issues with installing IPython. So that's probably why we didn't get very far, but it's okay. I know if you have technical difficulties, it's easy to get left behind, and we don't want anyone to get left behind. And since we had such a small group today, hopefully you'll get all those issues with IPython sorted out and not have any more issues, because we'll get started, and we're learning just enough Python to get our feet wet into test automation. And then once we're writing real tests, we'll learn more Python. All right, we will see you later.